You're listening to Building the Broncos with Nick Kendell and Carl Dumler, Broncos Country's leading draft and scouting analysts. Get on over to milehighhuddle.com to sound off on all things Broncos.
Spinning wheel, and got check marks across the board, still a spinning wheel, so we're going to wait for Juana in the background to get us going. Once he gives a thumbs up, he's nodding his head. I'm waiting for the thumbs up. I'm very much a... Where's the thumbs up, John? Oh, there it is. Okay, go ahead, Carl.
All right. Well, welcome in, everyone, to Building the Broncos. I am your host, Carl Dumler, and, of course, joining me is Mr. Nick Kendell. How you doing, buddy?
I am doing pretty well. I'm pretty exhausted. Woke up at 1:30 on Sunday to drive down and summit Mount St. Helens, which we did end up doing, but it was like 60-mile-an-hour winds and snow. It was so cold, I had a pair of long underwear, and I wrapped it around my head just to prevent windburn and whatnot. So there's a picture of me floating around with long underwear just hanging down like a beard. But other than that, I'm doing good, and also just very busy with the vaccine trials. So
fun.
All that. Yeah, very busy.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, we were supposed to get I think it was last week they were predicting 20 inches of snow today.
Ugh.
You know how much we got today?
2.
0. It was bright and sunny and warm out. Amazing how much can change in a week. But, thankfully, snow has stayed away. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I guess winter's here. I guess I should accept it. But that also means that we are in the middle of football and good times with that. So I'm excited that we get to talk some football today. Even if the Broncos are down, there's still plenty to talk about and still plenty to look at. I mean, this is part of the process. We said 2020 was not the year for the Broncos, that we were thinking 2021 can maybe be the real year where they get to compete with the Chiefs. This was the evaluation kind of year. And so we're going to evaluate some of the decisions the Broncos made this week. And so I'm excited to talk about that. But before we get to that, I want to let everyone know that our stream tonight is brought to you by sportsbetting.com. Broncos Country, gambling is now legal in the state of Colorado, and here's what makes sportsbetting.com a no-brainer for all sports fans. Sharp odds and low juice. They have in-house bookmakers. They're not a third-party provider of odds. Reduced juice, best prices. Their hassle-free bonuses means that the bonus money is yours after you bet it one time. Other sites range from 5 to 30 times. I've done that before. 24/7 live customer support, always a real person in the U.S. And here's the kicker. At sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle, you can get a 100% risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000. Not just one bet, but all of your bets. Play for a week, and if your losses exceed your winnings at the end of the week, sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle will cover 100% of the differences up to $1,000 with a one-time rollover. So head on over to sports betting at sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle. That's sportsbetting.com/milehighhuddle and capitalize on a risk-free week of sports betting up to $1,000. Also, make sure you head on over to Twitter and follow us there. I'm at Carl Dumler, MHH. And, of course, you got Nick at Nick Kendell, MHH. And join us if you're joining us from YouTube or wherever. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share. We really, really appreciate it. Click those little thumbs up for us as well. That just really helps to get our video out there more and more. Also, don't miss out on all the great in-season content at milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of Sports Illustrated.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Broncos Country, listen up. Coors Hard Seltzer is not your average seltzer. Rooted in Coors' long history of sustainability, the brand was inspired by a generation that wants to do good in the world with a mission to restore America's rivers. It's never been easier to do good in the world, to do something to make a difference, and Coors Hard Seltzer is paving the way by launching the world's easiest volunteer program. Whatever you're doing, by simply cracking open a can of Coors Hard Seltzer, you're volunteering because our waterways are at risk. 80% of America's rivers are drying up, but through a partnership with Change the Course, Coors Hard Seltzer is helping to protect and restore America's rivers. The way it works, each 12-pack of Coors Hard Seltzer restores 500 gallons of fresh water to U.S. rivers and the communities that depend on them. The results, 1 billion, that's with a B, gang, gallons of water restored to 16 river basins across the U.S., including the Colorado River, and that's just year one. Also, with Coors Hard Seltzer, you're getting 4 refreshing flavors and it's one cool cause. Enjoy naturally flavored black cherry, mango, lemon lime, and grapefruit. The specs are in, gang. Coors Hard Seltzer is 4.5% ABV and only 90 calories.
Chad, I can speak from firsthand certainty that nothing quite takes the sting off a tough defeat like a Coors Hard Seltzer. I know that everything will be all right, that I got my black cherry, handy, trusty Coors Hard Seltzer. For a football fan, win or loss, it's the way to go.
You heard it here, gang. So join the world's easiest volunteer program by simply drinking Coors Hard Seltzer. You can volunteer to restore America's rivers. You buy Coors Hard Seltzer, you help restore 500 gallons of water into America's rivers. It really is that simple. So visit CoorsSeltzer.com to find a Coors Hard Seltzer near you. That's CoorsSeltzer.com.
For every 12-pack sold through 8/31/2021, Coors will purchase services from Change the Course to restore 500 gallons of fresh river water. Details at CoorsSeltzer.com. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
All right, Nick. Well, I don't know if you'd call it big news or expected news, but the Broncos decided to bring back somebody that everybody's been pretty much pounding the table. Broncos, get this guy back in the building. Depleted Bausby is back with the Broncos.
Not fake news, as some might say, but Devonte Bausby is back after getting a quick run with the Arizona Cardinals. The Broncos let him go. A lot of Broncos country was beside themselves, moving on from Devonte Bausby, but he's back. I know that he is dealing with an injury, and the Broncos did claim him. He didn't get through waivers, so the Broncos do have a pretty high waiver claim right now. But after seeing Boye injured and Callahan's now injured as well, and we see, who was it out there? Michael Ojemudia, Sang Bassi, Devonte Harris, struggling. A lot of young guys, but I mean, it was bad missing the top two cornerbacks. That's just not shocking, but it was. So now Bausby's back. And I guess we have a lot of super chats here. Buana, would you pull up some of those Bosby ones? So we got JL Avenger 23 coming in with 5,000 CRC. So Costa Rica, beautiful country. Love Costa Rica. Let's pull up his comment, though, next to it. Hola, amigos. I am glad to see Bosby back. He indeed should have stayed. He is my favorites from the AAF. Expecting Fumagalli to help, too. Hoping offense works better through the whole game. Pura Vida, Costa Rica. Pura Vida, indeed. Man, I missed myself some three-toed sloths. Those are some cute son of a guns. We went there and we went to Arenal, Monteverde, and Manuel Antonio. A great vacation. Costa Rica, man, lovely country, even better people.
Well, there you go. No, he's right. Good to have Bosby back. The Bronco cornerback depth has been decimated on the worst week possible when you're going against Julio Jones, one of the top 3 to 5 wide receivers in the NFL.
All time.
Yes. And he still is at 31 doing things that a lot of younger guys wish they could do. And so he just obviously dominated the Broncos. The other wide receivers had career days as well. And it just showed. We were talking about this earlier today that Vic Fangio values a different type of cornerback. I mean, you're looking at the Michael Ojemudias, who are not quite your typical lockdown, shut down one side of the field or one the number one wide receiver kind of guy. He's not that, but he's smart. He's strong. He's willing to get physical with players. He's willing to go up and try to make tackles, although the last 2 weeks he's really struggled with tackling, which is weird because that was not a struggle of his in college. But he fits what Fangio likes. He can play zone. He can come down real quick downhill to make a play. And he does his job for the most part. But what you're seeing though is talent still matters at the position. You can't just get guys that fit the system and expect it's still going to work out. You still need talent to come in, and Boye being out, Callahan being out, really showed just how much of a drop in talent there is. Even though the scheme fits well with the other cornerbacks, it still mattered.
Yeah. Ojemudia has definitely been struggling the last 2 weeks comparatively. Now, when you're missing Callahan and Boye and going up against a Julio Jones, it's going to happen. That Julio Jones, a post route, man, he absolutely cooked him. That was I had to go back and see, and I couldn't tell if it was footwork or the hips. It looked like he took a misstep and didn't have the ability to recover. But man, Julio, he makes it look too easy. Julio's a freak. Yeah. It is what it is. You're going to get beat by Julio sometimes. And then Zacharias, Z-O. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name, but he absolutely cooked the Broncos as well. Missing the cornerback depth. Bosby being back will help a lot. Carl, I guess I want to kick it off to you. Why was Bosby let go in the first place? I know a lot of Broncos are besides themselves about that fact, but I think there is a methodology to it. And also, I know everybody's excited to get Bosby back, but like he's been off and on this team multiple times. Pretty much every single team's had a chance at him. Cardinals had him for a second. They're struggling at cornerback. They let him go. So again, you might be happy to have him back, but on a team with cornerback depth that's at least better, you're at least what you'd want. You're probably not excited about Bosby coming back. There's a reason he's been available multiple times.
Yeah, so there's three things that I see in his game that have caused him to really fall off the map with a lot of teams. First one's probably the biggest one because he is a depth cornerback. Depth cornerbacks are required to do special teams. Bosby is not great on special teams. He does not have that aggressive attack downfield, go make the tackle kind of guy, which also then fits number two. Fangio requires his cornerbacks to be tacklers. Bosby doesn't like contact a whole lot, and part of me doesn't blame him too much just in the fact that last year he suffered a very scary injury.
He's dinged now, right now as well.
Yes.
He's dealing with an injury. So
right, and so he just doesn't like that contact, and if you can't trust your cornerback to go and make the tackle when they might be the last line of defense, it's hard to put them on the field. And then number three, he sometimes takes too many chances. He thinks he's more gifted than he really is. Now, he can make plays. I mean, and there's a reason I was excited for him coming from the AAF, just like our comment said. He makes plays. But in taking those kind of risks, it's kind of like Marcus Peters. There's a reason he's been going from team to team. He makes amazing plays, but then he gets caught in very boneheaded situations as well because he finds himself out of position a step too late. And instead of being there to make the tackle, he's allowing a guy to go pick up an extra 30 yards down the field.
Yeah, and in this defense, you can't really have that.
Right.
Bend don't break, doesn't have the shutdown guys to really play that physical, aggressive coverage on the outside. And if you have a guy going out there and trying to be too aggressive and ruining the integrity of the back seven, then you're leaving everybody vulnerable. You got to do Bill Belichick. I know the Patriots suck this year, which God, how great is that? I hope they don't get a great quarterback in the draft, but do your job. I mean, really, especially for a defense like this, you got to do your job. And if you do too much, you're hurting other people around you. If you try to do too much, that's right. Thing. So we got Stephen Baumgartner coming in here. Stephen, hope you're feeling better. I've been thinking about you. Thank God we got Bosby back. Now we need to keep him. I've been watching a lot of Marvel movies while I have been sick. Yeah, I definitely think the Broncos might keep him. But again, Carl, you make great points. All three things I agree with. But as far as I think when it comes down to it, I think the biggest thing is probably that special teams ability.
Yep.
It's simply you have to have it if you're beyond cornerback 3. And he's definitely beyond cornerback 3 for this team in the pecking order. So just doesn't have it. And when you're down, you're 1 and 2 cornerback and you're forced to have those special teams corners out there, it's going to be an issue. It was an issue. But you can't have a roster. You don't have the spaces where you can be that defined roles with those guys. You can't just have a special teams cornerback for your 4th, 5th corner, or a cornerback who can't play special teams for your 4th and 5th corner. You just have to have a body there.
You can't bank on that your number 1 and number 2 are going to get hurt in the same week.
Yeah.
And think, okay, we need to keep this guy just in case both of those guys go down. That was just an anomaly. I mean, none of us knew that Callahan was going to miss the game.
Yeah,
that was kind of a last-minute decision that all of a sudden really hurt the Broncos. And Boye, going through concussion protocol, you just didn't know that whether he was going to be back or not. And so I understand some of the frustration. Yes, this last week, Bosby probably would have been better in coverage than what we saw from some of the cornerbacks. But I don't think it would have been enough to put the Broncos over the top either. I don't think they lose this game just because they didn't have Bosby on the roster.
Yeah, it was more so the injuries of Callahan, Boye, and Shelby Harris. I mean, those three together, especially with especially Callahan has been playing, but Harris too, and Boye in one game back. I mean, yikes, that's just, you're really vulnerable. And Matt Ryan's a good enough quarterback where he's finding the open guy. He's making him pay. He's finding the pre-snap, he's finding the matchup he wants to go for, and he's executing. So, I mean, you can say what you want about the mobility and Falcons choking, et cetera, but I mean, Broncos defense gave up yards, it gave up points. I mean, the game felt like it was out of reach quickly because the Falcons were executing, moving the ball meticulously down the field with a couple big plays, but I mean, they were just executing. So,
yep.
When at some point when you have this many injuries, it's going to show. And the Broncos and the 49ers are two teams that it's just like, you throw your hands up in the air and say, WTF. I mean, it's just, you can't make excuses. I mean, it's definitely an excuse, and it's a valid one on our end, I would say. But that's just how the year's breaking. I mean, it sucks. But, can't control it.
Yeah, if the injuries were happening to the back half of the roster, I wouldn't be sitting here saying injuries are a big part of this. But like I said, Shelby Harris being out, he has been maybe the best defensive player for the Broncos this season. I mean, I think he's up there for that argument with
Top
what he's shown.
Sure.
Yeah.
4 is the bottom.
Boye and Callahan. I mean, Callahan's been playing like a top 5 cornerback in the NFL this season.
Yeah.
Boye, of course, he's been hurt most of the year. Von Miller being out. So you have half of your starting defense gone that are key players that have actually been great contributors. They're not just hey, we're waiting to find something better kind of guys. They're actually the better guys.
Yeah. Purcell also out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So all that added together, it was kind of a decide if you're going to allow your cut to just, become a huge gash and bleed out and die, or are you going to let it just slowly bleed out kind of thing? And they just kind of slowly bled out throughout this entire game.
I feel like that's a great transition to the offense, but I'll believe it at that. Thoughts on the offense, defense, and special teams moving forward, future needs. Thanks for all you do. Click those little thumbs up. The Broncos, honestly, the offense, as far as the actual players in the depth chart, I don't think sets up terribly. I do want to talk about the Falcons game and some issues there, but I mean, and Alberto Cuebanon being out, I mean, I guess we don't have to say his name anymore. Where that you can always get tripped up on that, but speedy recovery to Alberto. But tight end, you feel pretty good about that for the next 2-3 seasons.
Yep.
Wide receiver, I mean, depending on Cortland Sutton, is probably the biggest thing. But Jerry Judy and KJ Hamler looked really good. Like they looked really, really good. And Deshaun Hamilton had a good game too. Honestly, Tim Patrick was the guy who left me a little bit wanting. And then the interior offensive line, or the offensive line in general, you're playing a backup at right guard. You're playing the third string, whatever you want to call it, or fourth string at some point, right tackle. Jake Rogers out there. Yep. And the center is, I mean, gosh, Lloyd Cushenberry is struggling really badly, really badly. So all that together, the offense on paper looks like it should be set up outside the right tackle position. But yeah, I mean, you'll hear me say this 10,000 times. It all comes back to the quarterback. It's like you have, I was thinking about it on the drive from work today. It's like Broncos offense right now. It's like people are blaming Shermer, and it pretends that Shermer is like the chef of a barbecue restaurant, right? You got all these fancy sauces and whatnot. That's the skill players. You have good sauces, exciting sauces, upcoming sauces. You got some Carolina style, some mesquite barbecue, maybe something a little different out there. Like some good sauces. And then the sides are the offensive line. Some of them are a little hit or miss. Garrett Bowles, really good baked beans this year. Should be better with Glasgow and Reisner, and then you have Corn that's out of season. Gosh darn it, Juwan James. But the biggest one right now is the quality of the meat has just been not great, and that's the quarterback position. I mean, it really comes down to how good that meat is for that barbecue place. You can blame the chef. The chef obviously could do better with the meat that he has, but the meat is also not living up to par. So there's plenty of blame to go around. Blaming on one or just the other is you guys are falling for simple polarization of two sides. You got to be better than that. There's nuance to it. But that's what I come down to. So sorry, long answer there. But and we didn't even get to the defense. But I think the offense overall, it has definitely areas that could be improved. But how can you say anything needs to be improved until you have a quarterback, right? Like you don't know.
Right. And Locke, he really has regressed this season.
Yeah.
He's doing things this year that he wasn't doing last year. At least last year, he was stepping up in the pocket and getting to his second read.
For this game, I don't fault him as much for that because the interior offensive line was that bad. A lot of the season, that's been true.
Yes.
And I agree with you. This game, I'm going to give him a little bit of slack because my God, the interior offensive line was bad.
Right. No, it just, like I said, it's more looking at the overall picture of Drew Locke so far. I would say there's been more bad than good. And now the good has been flashes of greatness, but you can't just keep having flashes and expect that's going to be okay. You got all these other quarterbacks that are showing consistent good on the field. Herbert for the Chargers, showing consistency in what he's bringing to the table. Still makes some rookie mistakes, but at least game in, game out, you have a pretty decent idea what you're going to get from him. Kyler Murray, consistent greatness on the field. We haven't seen that from Drew Locke. We see it in little flashes here and there. Some of these fourth quarter drives that really fit where he doesn't have to think as much, and usually it is kind of that first read. You're not having to read a defense because you're in hurry up, and so they're not bringing the exotic blitzes. They're just going to kind of a base shell coverage system. Makes life much easier for the quarterback, but you can't play an entire game that way.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. That's not a way to make a career. And so he's got to start showing some things that show he has advanced in what he's doing. He's still got 8 more games to go. So he's still got plenty of time to show something, but the clock is winding down here to the Broncos are going to have to really figure out something at that quarterback position. Otherwise, you are wasting away all these skill position players that look great.
While they're cheap also.
Yeah, while they're cheap. So we'll see how that plays out the rest of the season. Defense, it's just injuries.
I mean, there are some lacks, like obviously don't love they lack some athleticism at the linebacker position for coverage, and they lack depth at safety. Yeah. Also, that's another one, but really it's the injuries are the biggest thing.
Right. Special teams wise, it's just a matter of, again, when you've been hit by injuries, your coverage units are not great usually. Yeah. And I'm not a huge fan of our special teams coordinator right now. I think sometimes you're seeing a very huge lack of discipline in what they're doing and making sure that they're staying in their lanes. And I put that on the coordinator usually when I start seeing those kind of things.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got some special chats that we probably should get to. Buwana on the 1s and 2s behind there. Love you, Buwana. We got Casey Sheet coming in here. Sheet. That's definitely a German name. I should be better than that. I apologize to my ancestors. Drew starts late season junk games. Last year, late season junk games. His only positive this year being late. If he played well late in less meaningful games, does it still count? It still counts, but you have to, again, be able to assess the coverage, what other teams are trying to do. Are they playing very vanilla, drop guys back? Not prevent, but you're talking about easy, simple shells. It's kind of like in Madden when you tell the corners to back off because you don't want to get beat deep. You're not playing a prevent defense, but you're playing softer coverage. So that's something. And also the route types are very easy. I think it was Joe Rolls had one that he said in this game, 33% of Drew's completions were on curl routes. And a lot of those are because of the soft coverage. Those are open. So it's a concern. I still think, you have to understand that the flashes are there and they're positive. It's just not consistent enough. So this is something also I was thinking about. I haven't seen anybody really talk about it, but for Drew Locke, we see a lot of talk about running stuff that Drew feels better about, which I would argue that from what I've seen from the All-22, there are plays there to be made. Sometimes there's guys not executing the offensive line. The interior offensive line has been really bad. So that's, Dalton Reisner too. We know he was really good last year. He's struggled this year. And Cushenberry, he probably looks like a guy who needed a year before getting out there, but here we are. But the biggest thing, I see a lot of people talking, running an offense that makes sense for Drew, running up-tempo that makes sense for Drew. When I really thought he was starting to get cooking, and again, part of it might have been the Falcons' types of defense, but he was out there being an athlete. And I know there's talking about running bootlegs and stuff, but maybe even some quarterback design runs. Once he started kind of getting out there, getting hit, rather than thinking, this completely cerebral type of game, getting out there, running around, maybe run a quarterback power. Iowa ran that with Nate Stanley. If Iowa can run that with Nate Stanley, the Broncos can run something with Drew Locke. I know you're putting him at risk in an ideal situation. You're not doing that, but whatever's going on right now is not working. I want to see them use Drew Locke, the basketball player, the athlete, a little bit more just to loosen him up and let the game start flowing, because I felt like once he started running around, whether that be scrambles or design plays, that's when things really started to open up and he just started to play more loose.
Yeah. I come back to It is his skill set, but I come back to, is that sustainable for a career?
It's not.
No. And so at that point, I'm sitting there saying, if it's not sustainable for a career, then that's not our future at the quarterback position. Now, it can work for this season. They can go out and win enough games. They could probably go out there and win 7-8 games by him doing those kind of things if he stays healthy. But then you're kind of stuck in that middle spot, still trying to figure out what you're going to be doing at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And if that was something that they had to do the whole time for him to be successful, then we're talking like the Tebow level kind of quarterback where it's just like, that's not going to work. That's just not going to work long term. I'm talking more so as I think Drew Locke's confidence is really shot right now. And I know that he's the shoulder injury is still a concern for me at least. But once he's out there being able to run around a little bit, look like the confidence picks up a little bit. So I'm looking to go out there, let him be an athlete early, run around, whether it be bootlegs, heck, maybe an option. Let's see some trickery. I don't know. We got to think of something because the offense has been abysmal quarters 1 through 3 the last 2 weeks. And if using him as an athlete, getting him out there and running around, again, we're not asking him to be Lamar Jackson, but just loosens him up a little bit and gets a little bit of confidence. I know if you're still having to do that to make him work a year from now, it's the sun is setting. But yeah. I think right now he needs a jolt. And when he was out there running around, I just thought he looked much better.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And if it does kind of build him up and you can slowly build him up into more of an all-around quarterback as things begin to slow down, I'm all for that. I have no problem with the Broncos trying to go in that kind of direction. It just, like I said, just worries me. Can he get there? Can he actually begin to develop the things that you need him to develop? You're seeing so many of these young quarterbacks that are successful. I mean, they're showing things early on. There's no more of this developing a quarterback over a 4 or 5 year period and then evaluating at the end of that and saying, okay, what do we see here? You know, a lot of teams used to take those first round quarterbacks, give them the entire rookie contract to try to prove what they are. Now you're seeing teams where 1 year into it, even after their rookie year, they're making some decisions on, is this guy our future? And I mean, for better, for worse, I mean, that's just where the NFL is today. You can't wait on the quarterback position. Yeah.
It is what it is. I think that he's shown enough flashes that I would probably still lean into it for Drew Locke next year. Still, I think the plan probably is they'd have to bring in maybe somebody like a Jameis Winston kind of thing. And maybe you get a Ryan Tannehill situation where Mariota is Locke and then all of a sudden it clicks for that quarterback who was supremely talented. I mean, same with Ryan Tannehill. So that's a possibility. But right now, I think the situation is the Broncos are going to be probably a 6-win team. I think that's probably the safest bet. 3 more wins on the schedule this year. And then you're stuck in that no man's land. Yep. You know, Broncos don't have the cash to throw at Dak Prescott. They just don't. And are they going to, maybe they'll trade for Sam Darnold, but then you're talking about giving up 2 second-round picks. I mean, you know, that hurts. Definitely it hurts. So it's a bad situation. And I know Shermer has plenty of blame. Drew Locke has plenty of blame. The offensive line has plenty of blame. The injuries have plenty of blame. But, you know, it's just where they're at. So we definitely want to get to the comment section here. We've been ranting a little bit about Drew Locke. Honestly, Carl, I know you're typically a positive guy. I feel like I may be a little bit higher on Drew Locke than you are right now. But let's get to we can circle back to that. Tom El Greco coming in. Good to see you again, Tom, from north of the border there. Bausby was impressive in the nickel guys. He was impressive. I thought that he had definitely his best game. There was a few run fits where he came in and played pretty well. I still, man, seeing him get burnt on some crossers really has me concerned about his long-term ability in the nickel. But as far as a guy coming in and contributing, it was good. Is he going to displace Callahan?
No.
At
least not for the next 2 years. I mean, Callahan is one of the biggest discounts in the NFL right now.
He took a pay cut this offseason to stay on the team.
Yeah, and now he's playing, like I said, like a top 5 cornerback in the NFL.
Yep.
And especially over the last few weeks where they've given him the opportunity to be inside a little bit more, where he just really shines. That's his comfort zone, and he just dominates when he gets that kind of opportunity. So I like Bausby, but Callahan's the man. He's going to have to sit for a couple years at least, and maybe he proves enough where they can move on from Callahan and not have to pay him big bucks. But right now, I'm loving that the Broncos have Callahan.
And maybe Bassey can become that kind of Swiss Army knife kind of guy where he's kind of a nickel safety type. I don't know if he's big enough, but I don't know if he has the speed to stick at corner long term. So, but he looks tackling pretty well. He's a pretty smart player. So there's a spot for him on the team for sure. And he had a great game.
This is the Overtime Podcast Network.
Oh, here's a good one from Jay Roper. So I have a question. Is Shurmur long-term? Do you think we should stick with Shurmur and risk regressions of Locke, or change the OC with risk of stunting Locke's growth?
You mind if I take this one real quick? I think that Shurmur might not be the long-term answer, but Vic Fangio is going down with Shurmur on the ship. So I think that in the Broncos, their financial situation, I just don't see them moving on from Vic Fangio unless there's a full-out mutiny from the team this offseason, because they'd have to still pay the rest of Vic Fangio's contract on top of a new coach. So I think that the Broncos are probably stuck with what they have. And also, I don't think Elway's looking for another coaching search right now. So they'll probably stick with it. The question is more so Drew Locke. I'm pulling for him. I really hope he is the guy. I still think he can be the guy. The flashes are there. Just it's a lot of like the stuff that's been an issue this whole time, like the mechanics wise, the locking onto the first read stuff, and all that stuff leads to accuracy issues and boneheaded throws. So again, it's stuff that I hope we see down the stretch here. We still have 8 games. We still have a good sample size left against a lot of average teams, I would say, a lot of average defenses. So you can't really make excuses of, he just played all these great defenses. But also you can't have these teams where he's, playing against 2 of the top worst 5 defenses in football like he did last year going against the Lions and the Raiders. So we should really have an idea about Locke at the end of the season. Yeah. And again, you should know it when you see it. And right now it just hasn't been it.
Yeah. And I would say this about Shurmur. Part of the problem, I think, is just not having any kind of preseason to work with these players and get to know what is their real skill set. I mean, he can watch them on tape, but having a few snaps during the week and then the game snaps, I think it has been a little bit of a learning process for him. You could say that's an excuse, but it is part of the process of just trying to figure out what works with your team, what works with your quarterback. He hasn't had that opportunity to really figure out what meshes well with everyone there. And I think you're seeing glimpses of it at times where you're starting to see like Jerry Judy become a lot more involved in the offense and become a true number 1 wide receiver for them and running a lot of the routes that he does well with those crossers and just really getting him into space, letting him use his route running to get himself open. You're seeing more and more of that become a part of this offense. And Tim Patrick, I think he's done a great job of really utilizing the skill set of Tim Patrick. I still want to see Shurmur develop a little bit more with Noah Fant and what they're trying to do with him. Part of that's been Noah Fant's been hurt too. So it's kind of hard to develop that when the guy can't hardly be on the field half the time. So right now, I agree. I think they're love it or hate it. They're stuck with Shurmur for at least this year and next year.
Maybe not all of next year. If we're at this point next year and these offensive issues are still happening, you could see an in-season change. But I definitely think going into next year, they're just not going to do that. I mean, Vic Fangio, they fired a guy who was up and coming in Rich Scangarello because Shurmur was Vic's guy. And I think it's going to stay that way this year. So hopefully it'll start to mesh a little bit. I understand that maybe Drew Locke came from a shotgun system at Missouri where he was at his best, but he started to look better in the West Coast Shanahan style offense. And now they've gone back to this kind of shotgun 3 wide receiver set, which requires more precision, more mechanical consistency. And you're just not seeing it right now. So I don't know. I think either way, Shurmur's here for next year, but I would have said the same thing about Scangarello at this point last year too. So circumstances change, but I can't see a reality where Shurmur is gone because I think Fangio would say, if Shurmur is gone, I'm gone. Yeah. And the Broncos are not, again, we're talking in definitives, but I would be shocked if the Broncos are paying Vic Fangio on top of a new head coach next year, given their financial constraints.
Yeah. And Jay with the follow-up here. Also, can you guys please explain to me why Locke is not able to read defenses? Where is the pre-snap diagnosis? Shouldn't he be changing plays that he knows are going to be bad via the defensive look? Well, I mean, and this is one of my big issues with Locke right now. I like Locke. I really do. And kind of what you said earlier, I want him to succeed. But if you cannot read that a defense is bringing an all-out blitz at you, when all those guys are up on the line of scrimmage, they're charging right up, and you completely just miss it, and you're like, you almost have that surprise look like, oh my gosh, they blitzed me. And teams are really working hard blitzing him a lot right now because they see he's struggling with it. He's struggling to see where the blitz is coming from, to know that's where your hot read is at. That's where you're looking to throw to, is where the blitz is coming from. That's on him. As a coach, you want your quarterback, you expect your quarterback to be able to see that. You can only call the play and hope that your quarterback can see all that they're trying to do on defense. That's where Drew Locke has to improve his cerebral part of the game.
Yeah, you do have to question how much leeway and responsibility Shurmur is giving Drew Locke in the pre-snap situations. I mean, we were talking today about the Todd Haley, Matt Castle incident. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Pat Shurmur is that much of a dictator when it comes to allowing the quarterback to do things, but that is a question that I don't know the answer to. That's a key piece of information. But still, if you see a blitz is coming, you have to be able to get into, at least know where your hot read is. Like that's in every play. So you should have to know that. And it's just, you're not seeing it right now. But again, I've been as much of a proponent for the offensive line isn't as bad as people say for the past couple seasons. They've struggled, but especially they've been much better in the run game than they have been this year. But this past 2 weeks, the interior offensive line has been putrid. Yep, no push offensive line. It's the interior too. Dotson, I think, has been okay, which is pretty much all you could ask for considering the situation. But
right.
And both have been. He was much better to start the season. I think the last 2 weeks he's kind of regressed a little bit. He's still been playing at a above average level. So my biggest thing is the interior offensive line has been so bad. We talked about it preseason too, saying, let's say the tackles for the Broncos are bad. I'm not as worried about that because what we know about Drew Locke is once he starts sensing interior pressure, the mechanics go to the wayside and everything is rushed. He locks onto the read and he's just panicky. And even when there's not pressure, he's panicky. He's bailing. And so I didn't feel like actually was that much of an issue this week. There was just no interior to step up in. So again, I think that people are very much on the edge with Drew Locke, and I get it because he's been struggling. If we're talking specifically this Falcons game, though, well, I would have liked them to play better, yes, but the interior offensive line was so detrimental to a point where I'm willing to give him a little bit of a pass for this week, at least.
All right. We got a super chat coming in from Duke. See if we can get that pulled up here. Oh man, I love that picture.
Man,
got the Santa beard going. But he says Christmas comes early. Denver beats Las Vegas 69-0.
Nice.
That would be a glorious day. I could not wait to come back on here on next Tuesday and get to talk about that game and all the gloriousness of taking down Mr. Chucky.
We got Kenneth Booker coming in too. Oh, I like the Lindsay with the number 2 jersey in the picture there. That's pretty nice. That's old school, trying to make the team number for a undrafted free agent running back there. Locke needs Rippon in his ear instead of Shurmur, and that's sad. I mean, Rippon, I've always said that Rippon has a future as a coach coming up. So sorry if you guys hear any banging too. There is still construction going on and right outside my window. So what are you going to do living in a city where people are all around you? We can't all be like Carl living out in who knows where, Kansas.
I get to enjoy my countryside.
But I know Kenneth Booker is he needs to change his name to Rippon's number 1 fan, because anytime I say anything about Rippon, Kenneth is at me about it, and I appreciate it because it makes me chuckle. But I mean, maybe at some point Rippon will be the coach in the players' ear. Maybe it'll be Locke, maybe it won't be. But I don't totally disagree with you here.
Yeah, there have been times I think you do see just the disconnect between Shurmur and Locke on some things that they're calling out there. And I'm not trying to say Shurmur is without blame this year. I put more blame on the offensive struggles on Locke and the other quarterbacks that have started than I do on Shurmur.
Yeah, I think some of it is too. I think Shurmur's doing a pretty good job with the weapons. I've seen a lot of good schemes to get guys open. I mean, there was a 3rd and 9 where Jerry Judy, Jerry Judy was killing it this game, and he still had a good game. I think he put up like 22 fantasy points or something. I was up against him this week, unfortunately. So I think he's doing a pretty good job with the weapons, but as far as the scheming for the protections and the quarterback to feel comfortable with the protections, that is an area where I've had a lot of issues with him.
Yep. Yes, Duke is right. Click that like button for us, guys. We really appreciate it if you can do that. Helps us out, helps just really get this out there. More and more people get to see it, and we really appreciate it. But all right, so we got a few more coming in here. Jim Hilton, I think Shurmur is trying to fit Locke into his scheme instead of letting Locke play his own style. Okay.
You're not going to scrap it for this Kyle Shanahan system, though. I mean, it's a different type of offense. Right, so I know that's what Locke was doing last year. Again, against some trash defenses in the Lions and the Raiders. I think that really needs to be emphasized, how small the sample size was last year and how bad those defenses were outside of the Kansas City defense that they played.
Right.
But it's definitely an issue. I think it is an issue, and it's more to do with, I think, the pass protection than anything.
Yeah, pass protection plays into it. I also think this is where people don't see everything that's going on because, I mean, the broadcast video, you don't get to see the wide receivers and all that they are doing. And if you actually get to watch that, you get to see guys breaking open on a regular basis. You see wide receivers that Locke is missing. So while I do think, yes, there are times where Shurmur and Locke are not on the same page, I don't think you can put this all on Shurmur's scheme either of why Locke has struggled. Guys have been open. He's just not seeing them. And even there's been times where he's seen them and he's not been accurate. He missed Tim Patrick with an easy touchdown this last week. They're early in the game that could have really got them some great momentum, kept them in this thing. And all he had to do was put a little bit more air on it, missed it. I'm thinking of the Chargers game when he had Noah Fant late in the game, streaming down the field, wide open, overthrew him by about 3 or 4 yards. So there are accuracy issues. There are just mental things that Locke has messed up. Offensive line has not done their job like they should be doing. There's just a lot of things that have played into this. Shurmur plays a part in that. I'm not trying to discredit him. I just think a lot of people, it's easy to say offense is struggling. Oh, offensive coordinator. But there's also then the other side. Offense is struggling. Oh, quarterback's bad. So like you said, there's more nuance to this. Everyone plays a part in why this offense is not doing well this year.
Yeah, and I saw a comment, somebody talking about these former first-round picks struggling, first overall picks struggling at quarterback, like the Elways or the Peyton Mannings. Again, this requires nuance, I believe, where you have Drew Locke coming into a team that was not good, obviously. They were not good, but you're not talking about absolutely just horrific teams. You know, like Trevor Lawrence, let's say he comes out, and then he goes, here we go, it's Jay Roper again. Let's say Trevor Lawrence comes out next year and the Jets are continuing to lose, but Trevor Lawrence is out there playing okay, solid. He's coming onto the worst team in football. Like, that's not what Drew Locke is right now. Like, imagine if you put Drew Locke on what this Jets offense is right now. How is that looking? Like, for real, what is that looking like?
Yeah.
So I think that's a required conversation. Also, those first overall picks have a college pedigree as well that you can go back and lean on. And then I also see people talk about Josh Allen struggling to start on. Well, Josh Allen has the best tools in football. Josh Allen is one of the best athletes at quarterback. He has the best arm talent, arm velocity of any quarterback. Yep. And he had a great defense and team where he could kind of be nurtured and brought along. And you could see the progress as well. Not seeing that from Locke. He doesn't have the best arms in football. He's not the best red zone quarterback in football at the same time also. So again, you can point to those guys for sure. And if you want to do it, by all means, that's your prerogative. But I think that it just does not, it's not a 1-for-1 by any means.
Right. Isaiah coming in here with a super chat. Appreciate it. Locke and these youngsters need a real offseason. I agree. And I'm not saying that Locke shouldn't be the guy next year. Like I said, he's got 8 games. He's got some average defenses that he's going to go against. He'll have some opportunities to improve his game. And maybe they reach that point where they're just like, hey, we're not in position to get one of the top guys. We don't really want to trade 2 second-round picks to get a Sam Darnold. We don't want to pay for a Matthew Stafford. Let's just give Locke when he has a real offseason, and Shermer has a real offseason with him, and these weapons all have an offseason, and you get, of course, Cortland Sutton, a top 10 wide receiver in football, back on the offense. I think that would pay dividends for this team. We said it at the beginning of the year that the Broncos would be one of the worst hit teams because of missing the offseason, just because of how young they are on offense. And we're seeing that prove to be true. You see miscommunications. You see some of these guys running wrong routes or not understanding what they're supposed to be doing. You're seeing, again, Locke not completely understand this offense and feel comfortable in it. I think and this is partly why I don't want to switch offenses again. Then Locke and everybody has to learn an entire new offense again. You need consistency. You're seeing it with the defense with Fangio, that when they get that consistency, they begin to really shine for some of these players.
Yeah, I agree with you there. This is just a combination of so many things going wrong for the Broncos at the same time, and I really think that they must have made a deal with somebody to win that Super Bowl 50. I mean, we saw that team. They had one of the best defenses of the decade, no doubt, but like the offense was so bad, and there were so many games that were like, man, I don't know if they should have won that game, but they pulled it out enough to get the first overall pick, and then the playoffs just rolled the right way, and they won the Super Bowl. For a team that, I mean, the 2012 team, I think if you matched up the 2012 team to the 2015 Broncos, that 2012 team wins 4 out of 5 games. So again, it just kind of fell that way, and this year it's kind of paying the piper with that string of luck. So again, it's coming back, regressing to the mean, so to speak. Here we go, Kenneth Booker again. Oh, some more ripping comments. I think Kenneth Booker is ripping. I really, dude. How you doing? How you doing, bro? Ripping. Ripping might not have the talent to be a long-term quarterback, but he definitely knows how to set protection. That's Locke's biggest weakness. I think it's one of Locke's biggest weaknesses. My biggest thing with Locke is just the base mechanics, because they go haywire immediately, and then as soon as you do that, you're sacrificing mechanics. He's skipping balls off the turf and sailing guys, and it's just, and it's when it's not called for too. You know, like I get it. You grew up watching Brett Favre, but you're not Brett Favre. You know, you don't have Brett Favre's arm talent. I'm sorry, Locke. You got a good arm. You don't have Brett Favre's arm talent, so you can't be able to make plays when it's not called, or trying to make those splash plays, off balance throws, off platform when they're not called for. Well,
and I do wonder how much that shoulder injury is affecting him with some of that accuracy.
Yes.
Because last year he was throwing off platform, but he was much more accurate than what he's showing this year. He's missing some of those really easy throws that even when he is on platform, he's just not. I don't know if he's trusting his arm like he did last year. And so he's got to work on some of that. He's got to get that shoulder healthy. And like I said, he does have to work on those base mechanics. His footwork is just all over the place. He's trying to do – you're seeing a lot of these quarterbacks, and yes, it works sometimes. And everybody watches Patrick Mahomes with all of his different arm angles. Matthew Stafford does it. Aaron Rodgers does it. And I guess you're starting to see a lot of quarterbacks just think they can all do it too. And you're even seeing it in the college game where I'm going, come on, guys. When it's not even called for. Like you said, there's just times where he's even trying to throw sidearm when it's not called for. And so some of that, just clean it up, make the throws when you need to make the throws, and get him that full off season with these guys. I think, yes, that would pay a huge dividend for the Broncos. So I'm not fully giving up on Locke. I'm not saying move on, get another quarterback right now. I'm just saying there's a lot. There's a lot to be desired.
Yeah. And just to shift gears here real quick, Bowana's looking for super chat or anything in there. I think not the biggest thing, but something I do want to talk about is these second and long runs with Shermer, which I think is probably one of the biggest issues right now. But I also think it comes back to how much the offense, the way they're calling plays, they're saying that they don't trust Locke. Maybe they also don't trust the offensive line, but they don't trust Locke because they are doing everything they can, even though it goes against the data, to not be in 3rd and long. If they can be 3rd and 7 instead of 3rd and 10, they will take it, even though everything screams, don't run the ball on 2nd and 10. Like, just don't do it. It's bad. It's a bad idea. So I think that really comes back to not trusting the quarterback. And again, why are they in so many 2nd and 10s? Because they're not executing on 1st down. They're horrible on 1st down. Yep. There are guys open, and they are just not executing on 1st down. And so when you're constantly in 2nd and 10, I thought that actually in the first half, there were some 2nd and 10 runs. There was a draw that actually I thought was a pretty good play I think it was to Lindsey on 2nd and 10. But again, it's the reason that it's such an issue is because they're constantly in 2nd and 10. They're not executing on first down, and there are guys open. There really are. So it's just there's just so many issues that they can go with. And again, shifting gears here real quick again, actually, this is where I wanted to go. The reason that people are screaming for Drew Locke to, have another year, bad offseason or whatnot, I don't think Vic Fangio has another year to ride the Drew Locke experience if it's this much of a struggle. Vic Fangio will be, if the Broncos finish 6 wins or less this season, Vic Fangio is probably coaching for his job next year.
Yep.
And is he hitching his wagon to Drew Locke? I don't know. I mean, from what we've seen so far, I would be very trepidatious knowing that my job depends on what the quarterback play has been so far. So, again, there's a lot of factors to discuss here. We got 8 more games. God, I'm pulling for Drew Locke. I thought I saw somebody say that they didn't know how much Drew Locke wanted it. Drew Locke wants it. Guys, he is devastated after these games. Don't question his heart because that's in it. But just right now, it's not all coming together. And there's plenty of blame to go around. But simple fact is he's got to play better.
Yeah, you're right. And the Broncos, if they decide to move on from Locke, there's a lot of different options and avenues that they can go. We'll get into that conversation much later into the season or into the off season. But we got Andron coming in here with a comment. I truly believe Locke is struggling early because we can't get any running game going early. We're the youngest overall offense in the league. We must have a running game. Yeah, that's a part of it. Offensive line not getting any push, run game not really getting them into advantageous 2nd and 3rd situations. And, I mean, you've seen also Melvin Gordon struggle with fumbles. It's just been the entire offense. You can look at everything that's gone wrong and say, and if you said, hey, this is the problem, I would say, yep, you're right. This is the problem. I mean, that's what we're seeing in this conversation today. There's a lot of blame to go around of why this offense is just not doing well, why Locke is struggling early in games. There's many things that play into that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And again, a running game is only as good as, the defenders in the box, number one, but the offensive line. And Garrett Bowles, he was the whipping boy all offseason. He's been the whipping boy since he was the first overall pick. He's not really the issue. It's the interior offensive line. Dalton Reisner is really struggling. He had that injury. I don't know if that's still bothering him, but he's been struggling. Lloyd Cushenberry might be playing as the worst center in football right now. He's struggling that badly. And again, I've made this point on Saturday, but like the Broncos' last 2 starting centers and Matt Paradis and Connor McGovern, they were on the practice squad their rookie year. So like Lloyd Cushenberry is tossed to the fire, sink or swim. Right now he's sinking. I still have you have to give him, I think, 2 or 3 years. I really wanted them to sign BJ Finney because I wanted to have that stable center to come in year 1. And maybe in hindsight, that would have been a good idea. It didn't happen. But Cushenberry is struggling like crazy. And then Glasgow, who was up and down, starting to play better, now injured. And I know Bwana is going to be upset about this one, but Schlottman is not playing well. Like it's really bad, especially with the ability to push guys out of the way in the run game.
Right. Teams are targeting Schlottman.
Yes.
That Chargers game, you saw late in the game, Melvin Ingram was lined up against him.
Because why not?
Yeah. I mean, he's your backup guy. Go attack that guy. And so they were really working hard to beat him because they realized he's the weak link on the offensive line. And while he's good, he's a good enough backup, he's not your long-term solution there. And so you need to get Glasgow back. Hopefully he's back this week because I think that then in turn helps Lloyd Cushenberry because he was looking good or looking better, I would say. Not good. He was looking better until Glasgow went out again.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big one. And then also you have Jake Rogers coming in too. So again, I feel like we're being very hard on Drew Locke, but that's because we understand the window Fangio has and what it takes to be a quarterback. And there are always cases where quarterbacks can land elsewhere and succeed. There's the Ryan Tannehills of the world, and it would really stink for the Broncos to move on from Drew Locke and then have him go find success elsewhere. That would be unfortunate, but we're working with the ticking time bomb right now, and it's not going to be totally fair to Drew Locke. It's a results business. He's going to have to deliver, and he also needs to show that he's a quarterback that can succeed despite not having ideal situations. Most quarterbacks do not have ideal situations year after year. And you can make excuses forever, but at some point, the quarterback has to be a guy that can overcome those excuses. So not seeing that right now. Flashes are still there. 8 more games, guys. 8 more games. But Kenneth Booker, after getting a first down, they need to run no huddle. I would love that. I would love them to do that. I think it was North Carolina a few years ago. Anytime the ball for basketball, anytime the ball bounced off the rim, frickin' running up the court, man, just going as fast as they can in the transition game. I want to see that on first down as well. Get rhythm, make those other teams on the heels. I feel like the best offensive have done that. That being said, the ability to run that consistently and to execute properly out of that, pretty hard ask for the youngest offense in the NFL.
Right.
I think it's not easy. You have a veteran offenses that can pull it off much more.
Right. I mean, you saw that with the Patriots. Tom Brady, he was famous for being able to change the pace of the game throughout the entire game. Because, I mean, he's one of the smartest quarterbacks to ever play the game. And, I mean, they just are one of the more disciplined teams. You're seeing with the Broncos, they get a lot of pre-snap penalties because you're seeing how undisciplined they are because, again, they're young. These guys are thinking too much on the field and making little mistakes that add up quickly that disrupt a lot of these drives. And so all of a sudden you go from, getting that first down to all of a sudden, illegal formation, 1st and 15. And they're showing that they just haven't been able to overcome when those mistakes happen. And so I wouldn't mind them going hurry up just to kind of get guys getting into a flow of things. But it's kind of a double-edged sword. There could be some really good things that can come out of that, but you can also see some major mistakes that really destroy the team.
Yeah, we got Kenneth Booker coming in to superstar today. Phil was used Slotman to his advantage. He would let him get bowled over, and then Phil would jump cut to the other side in the Chargers game. Nobody's as good at running the football that way as Phil. Yeah. The past few seasons, too, they the interior offensive line, but the Broncos' run game, they were one of the better actually run blocking units in football. Didn't really matter because the pass blocking was that bad in comparison. But this season, the run blocking is it's not the same. So I don't really know what's going on there. I think probably the biggest thing is the center position is struggling so much that it's just having a trickle down effect on the rest of the offensive line. We got Darian P coming in here too with a good question. I know it's a big topic of conversation with Shurmur following him all season. But Darian says, I know Eric mentioned this before. Why doesn't Shurmur implement more motion in the offense to help Locke pre-snap? Excellent question. Why isn't every single play a play action? I don't know. If there's a point of too much play action, data says we haven't reached it yet. So that's something that you'd have to ask him. And I mean, why aren't they using trick plays either? We saw that reverse, which looked actually pretty darn good, getting the ball to KJ Hamler in space. Now that's out there on tape. Keep using the motion. Make teams think about it. You saw a team you had success with it. Keep putting it out there on tape and make them at least respect it. And that if that stalls a defender for a quarter of a second, that's sometimes all you need for a window. So I don't know. That's a great question.
Yeah, the Chiefs use it all the time with Tyreek Hill.
And Mecole Hardman.
I mean, right. Most of the time it is a fake motion sweep, and it's just a run up the middle. But just because they fear that kind of speed coming off the edge, it just opens things up for the running back running up the middle. And so, I'd love to see that happen a lot more. And I think once they get more comfortable with KJ Hamler being on the field and kind of figuring out what he can do, I think you're going to see that a little bit more as we go about the season.
Yeah, I see a lot of people asking me where is my adult beverage. Guys, I literally busted in the door and ran down here. So I do have my water because I had no water today, but I've been really busy. I do need a beer, though. Nick's Beer Fund is alive and well. I'm going to open up a cold one after this. So I guess, there it is, Nick's Beer Fund. So, Carl, before we get out of here, I know Duke's giving me a hard time, but guys, Chad gets mad if we get too long, so I'm not going to do that. Ever since he moved to Seattle, he stopped drinking. Honestly, I stopped drinking a little bit after I had my ulcer. Doctor's orders. Yeah, alcohol and ulcers are not great. But positives coming out of this game, Carl. Before we get out of here, let's end it on a high note. What are the positives you have coming out of this game? I know everybody's doom and gloom. That's what's great about football, man. You're so in the moment. You can be totally rational about coming in the season. The expectations of the young offense. They had a weird offseason. It's going to be up and down. And then once you get to the game, all that rationality is out the window. So what are some positives that you take from this last game for the Broncos that it's not all doom and gloom? There is stuff to look forward to.
Well, I would say Jerry Judy looks like a star. I'm not afraid to say that right now. I mean, the guy is getting open left and right. It doesn't matter that even if they try to double him, whatever they want to do, shade a safety to his side, the guy is finding ways to get open. He seems to feel a lot more comfortable than he did early in the season. You're seeing him really show that natural ability. He's making even some tough catches, something that he didn't even always show in college. I've seen him go down, make some, where it wasn't a very accurate pass, but he still went and made the play. So I'm loving what he's showing. KJ Hamler showed that he's that athletic freak that of why you go draft a player like that to open things up for the offense. And so I think you're seeing the young guys show well. And I mean, that's very promising that your rookie class is really being the stars of the team this year. I mean, Ojemudia, yes, he's had a couple down games, but he's been rock solid at that cornerback position, something most people did not think that he would be this early in his career. And so, I mean, that's been big. You're starting to see Ajim get a little bit more time. I mean, partly because of injuries, but he's still getting a little bit more time on the field. And so I'm excited just to see this rookie class moving forward. And I mean, we said 2021, that's the year that you're really going to see this team take off. And right now that I feel very comfortable thinking that this team's going to be very strong 2021.
It all comes back to the Q. Unfortunately, or fortunately, if you have a great one, then other things don't matter. But right. I want to say my positive. Oh, go ahead. Oh,
I was just going to say, but also, I mean, you get these injured players back too.
Yes.
I think that makes a huge difference in just looking at this team and going, okay, you got a great secondary, especially if you re-sign Justin Simmons. You've got great pass rushers once Von Miller gets back because, I mean, Malik Reed, he's not great against the run, but he's showing pretty darn well as a pass rusher. And Draymond Jones is really coming into his own as an interior guy. You get Casey back to add next to him. Hopefully you get Shelby Harris signed again. Man, I mean, you see this team when the starters are in there, this could be a quality roster.
I definitely agree with you. And my positives, somebody mentioned here, I pulled it up for a second and then it disappears with comments. Casey Martin coming in. Casey, we see you. You're always in here. We really do appreciate you. Hamler played well against Atlanta also. Yeah, I thought Judy and Hamler looked really good. That made me excited. Mm-hmm. And that's, again, this isn't a terrible offense. It's young, but there are means to succeed. So we got to figure out that offensive line. That's got to get a little bit better. That, again, we've been concerned about tackles forever, but that interior just not getting it done. So, and that hurts the run game as much as the pass game. But I think that's another one. And also, talking about young guys getting some play, I mean, I thought Draymond Jones had a really good game too.
Yeah.
He was in there making plays, and DeMarcus Walker had some good pass rush. He was still getting moved from the point of attack like he's a shopping cart, but in the run game. But other than that, I mean, Draymond Jones had a very good game. So I'm really excited about him as well going forward. So those are my big two positives. I thought those two guys look like long-term guys that can be big playmakers, and they're just getting better.
Right.
And obviously Judy was playing very well. And God, if I don't feel bad for Judy for having Locke. Eyelash, how does that happen? I don't feel bad for Judy for having Locke, but if Judy came into a situation where he had a more competent quarterback, let's even say Judy came in and played with Matt Ryan, he'd be easily on his way to 1,000 yards, I think, because he is getting open. I mean, he was open a lot this week, and finally they got him the targets that were necessary. I think you're going to really start to see that be the game plan going forward. I mean, he needs to be him and Noah Fant, who is dealing with an injury. It's pretty obvious to see he's not 100%, which is really annoying. I feel bad for him, but I mean, like, gosh darn it. But the offense needs to be funneled through Jerry Judy, because right now Jerry Judy is open.
Yep,
he's open now. I mean, just call it. Hey, Judy, you open? Yes, toss him the ball. It doesn't matter.
Yep. And of course, Duke coming in with one last second super chat. Charlie Beagle is the best live chatter ever. Hard to disagree.
When you look like that, Santa, it's great. And now I gotta drink some of my gluten-free. It's cage-free also.
Ooh.
Just for you. I do need a beer though. But yeah, guys, nope, we are at an hour. So unfortunately, we need to get on out of here. We do appreciate you. Now that Duke did that last super chat, we got to run quickly before he does another one. But that's going to do it for Building the Broncos today. You can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler MHH and myself at Kendell MHH. make sure you're going over to milehighhuddle.com, an affiliate of Sports Illustrated. Go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Also, like, subscribe, and share on YouTube. Click those thumbs up on Facebook or any sort of react. We do appreciate it. And doing any of that can really help not just this show, but also the Huddle Up podcast, the Dove Valley Deep Divers, Mile High Insiders, all of us under the same network. When you support us, you support them. When you support them, you support us. So we really do appreciate that. You can also follow our main accounts on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at BTB Football Pod. Carl, what do you have the rest of the night? What are your plans?
I got myself a run to go on.
A run?
Yes.
What are you running from?
Everything. Life.
God, ain't that the
No,
truth.
I got my my Spartan run in March. I better get going now. I got about 20, 25 LBs to lose here before that time.
You need to talk to Luke. Luke's been dropping the weight like crazy.
No, that's what I hear.
So, good for him. And, man, hiking season, I think, is officially over here in the state of Washington. They are just, the Central Cascades are just getting dumped on right now. So, guess I'm going to be a little bit more available on the weekends. Although now with this trial really getting running, I might actually have to be working on the weekends some as well. So we'll see. On that note, though, guys, I've had a power bar and a banana today. I need to go eat. Love y'all. Stay safe. And we'll see you next time, and go Broncos.
You've been listening to Building the Broncos. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.